moderator, Michael Coakley, VP, Head of Communications, Liberty, Latin America. Welcome, Michael. Please give Michael a round of applause. And he is joined by our women leaders pioneering change. Carrie Scott, Senior Vice President, Chief People Officer, Liberty Latin America. Welcome, Carrie. Patricia Walters, Chief Executive Officer, The Cable. Welcome, Pat. A round of applause. And Heather Wilkins, Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer, HCI Energy. Welcome, Heather. Over to you, Michael.
Thank you, thank you. Hopefully the mic is working. Oh gosh, I can see everyone. It is awfully bright up here. Okay, so we get the benefit of coming right after a break. So hopefully more people will start to file in, but the energy will be good. So one more round of applause for our great panel that we have up here today. Awesome. So, you know, a couple things that I heard last night and into this morning, really 3 points that I think were made super strongly as we get into this panel, right? One, we must leave no one behind, right? And I think it's a super important topic. I think the CANTO chairman reiterated it, and we heard Prime Minister Davis reiterate it again this morning. So no one left behind, and I think a critical point that we're here talking about today. Two, my colleague Marilyn mentioned it last night if you were here, but we need to build a more inclusive digital society. And so how do we do that? And we'll talk about some topics around that today. And then three, most critical maybe, we heard it last night from Minister Vaz. The fact is that as leaders, we have a responsibility to act, and that the time for talking is over. So we're going to talk a lot about actions and the things we're doing today, right? So super excited to be joined by this very distinguished panel. We're going to start talking about leadership in times of crisis. So Hurricane Beryl just came through the Caribbean, significant damage, and we've seen people step up to the plate and take a leadership role. So maybe just I'll pose the question to you first, Carrie, as we think about leading in times of crisis, what qualities come to mind? What characteristics do you think make a difference?
Yeah, well, I think certainly in our region, we don't have any shortages of crisis. I think we, having seen so many hurricanes come through the region, and I think so many examples of leaders stepping up to lead in that. And of course, just recently, well, fairly recently, but COVID over the last period where so many leaders had to step up. But, I think about the qualities, and I was thinking about this question, I was actually thinking about Inga, actually, who leads our Caribbean business, who was on the stage earlier. Looking at some of the qualities that she used over the last kind of days to lead our teams through Hurricane Beryl, I think such a big part of it, one is leading with empathy. And I think that's so critical. We see that in leadership all the time. Leading with your heart, leading with empathy, I think is one of the biggest qualities. The other, I think, is knowing that you won't have all the answers. I think leaders who lead well during crisis are not afraid to not have the answers, not afraid to be vulnerable. And I think just keeping that kind of learning mindset, so certainly checking your ego at the door during a crisis. You've got to get the right people around you, I think, is also really important. So assemble the right team, have the right people that you can trust. And I think more than anything, I think just lean into your own values. At the end of the day, I think people know how to lead in the right way. And I think if you rely on your values, you rely on your experience, you lead with empathy, there's no blueprint. So you're never going to know. Yeah. No crisis is the same. So you're never going to know exactly what to do, but I think some of those things would carry well.
Yeah, no, fantastic. Pat, you want to build on that?
Yes, I agree with everything you just said. I think leading through crisis, decisiveness, empathy, emotional intelligence, problem solving, collaboration, influence, being calm under pressure, all of that. And if I take, everyone's spoken a lot about Beryl and hurricanes because we're in a hurricane belt. But if I take COVID, that took the whole world by storm. And I'm CEO of an indigenous telecommunications company. How on earth in the Caribbean, when everything's locked down, you get people to pay your bills? As simple as that sounds, you get them to pay their bills. There's one. When most of the population use cash and check, yeah? So they come into the office and use cash and check. What do? Okay, so we collaborated with Cable and Wireless and Digicel, and the supermarkets were open, the financial institutions were open, and we had these boxes that you could drop your checks in. And the three of us collaborated, picked it up and shared around with everyone. That kind of worked, but it didn't work. So we were thinking about this digital age. How can people sit at home and go online? And we actually launched our own MasterCard. So every single customer got a MasterCard. We got permission for them to come and collect them. We got them produced. And then we kind of walked them through how to pay online, pushed forward a self-service app so that they could pay online, see everything online. So that's just one thing about problem solving. Also collaborated with Digicel and Flow to make sure internet was everywhere, because during COVID, like, connectivity was more important almost than water and electricity. And people worshipped, they were online schools, they worked from home, they connected with people overseas, they couldn't travel, so connectivity was hugely important. And so what did we do? We provided, the borders were still closed, but people could go out, schools were closed. We provided internet to households that didn't have it. And we did it with all the telecommunications providers. So both Flow and Digicel came on board with us as well with that. We provided free Wi-Fi in every single community centre. And we provided free Wi-Fi downtown as well. So leading in crisis, being empathetic, understanding what's important to people, and actually making it happen. The Prime Minister spoke earlier about action-orientated. So yes, we all say the nice words, but how do you make it happen? How do you give everybody a credit card? And now 25% of our population that didn't have access to a credit card before has an access to one now. Yep, and incredible. Free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, no, amazing. That's fantastic. So give a round of applause for that. Heather, over to you. I think, you've had multiple, as I read your bio, it's so impressive about all the different kind of leadership positions you've held throughout your career. So times of crisis, what do you lean on? How do you think about your leadership style?
So the big thing for me is consistent with both of them, is really that empathy and intention and courage. Courage to do the things that others may not feel comfortable. Courage to speak up and to use that empathetic voice to understand that people are dealing with different things in that situation. Everyone deals with crisis and change in a different way. And so it's really being comfortable in that moment to take the courage to treat them in a way that's going to make them feel that empathy. And speaking up to other leaders to share those intentions, to share the why, to really work through a path to navigate through that crisis together and to support those that are working for you. And COVID was not easy in even a corporate environment.
Right.
They completely, we had people stranded that weren't allowed to travel or fly anywhere. We said, hey, we understand you might not even be home, but you're not allowed to fly. If you do, don't tell us, right? And so just imagine just the myriad of the different things that people were experiencing during that type of crisis, but let alone the crisis that happens every day with some of the things that you experience in the Caribbean, right? And so it's during those times for me, I really lean into that empathy really hard. And I really dig deep to find that courage to speak up and talk about what needs to happen and being creative to find the way to get it done.
Yeah.
Yes.
No, fantastic. I think, as we get through this panel, we're talking about women leaders pioneering change. And was there a specific moment in any one of your careers, Pat, we'll start with you, that you realized, I am driving change, I am having an impact? What is there a defining moment that you can recall?
I have many. But I'm going to just go right back to the crossroads of me in my professional career, and then I'm going to give you the answer to that question. So it's my 28th birthday, and some of you have heard this before. 28th birthday, and I'd got my dream job, an accountant. I was in the UK, in London, great firm. And first day on the job, I went in, 28th birthday, and my boss, who's a lady, said to me, oh my gosh, Pat, we're so glad that you're here. And I'm like, wow, got my dream job. And she said, yes, because when Karen was here, she used to get on the table and dance. I'm like, what? Yeah, she used to get on the table and dance and sing. And I said, I'm not here to entertain you. But Karen was a black lady that was there in the department before, so that was a tokenism. And I was absolutely devastated. Went back home, and my friend, who wasn't working at the time, decided that he was going to get me a birthday gift, which was a framed picture with Rosa Parks on it. And in this picture, it said, women contribute half of the population. They do 2/3 of the work. They earn 1/10 of the income, and they own less than 1/100th of the world's property. But all of that's changing thanks to people like you. So that was my crossroad, and I said, right, okay, I'm not going to be a token for anybody. I'm not going to just be represented because of who I am, what I look like. I'm going to get to where I need to get to by being the best, and I'm going to pull people with me. And that was my crossroads. And so then I decided I wasn't going to be used, I was going to be useful, wasn't going to be manipulated, I was going to be motivated. No excuses because of where I came from or anything. I was just going to exceed expectations. So that was the crossroads. And that's always driven me. So value-based, you know, your integrity and your value-based principles is what drove me.
Yeah, no, that's an amazing story. I didn't hear that one, but I heard a lot of stories from a lot of other colleagues who know you for a long time, and they all totally agree with everything you just said. It's an amazing story, and you're an inspiration to a lot of people, so thank you.
And so then you asked me what was the defining moment when I realized that I was making a change. I was the CEO of Cable and Wireless in St. Kitts and had a really strong team, and in leadership, your team is everything. And so if you haven't got the right team, you have to move them around and make sure you do have the right team. So I had a really strong team, moved on to another job, and about 3 years afterwards, one of them said, thank you. Someone sent me an email and said, thank you. And I said, thanks for what? I said, just thank you for just being really ridiculously hard on me, because that's really shaped the way that I am. And he said, it's not just me. He said, look at the team that you left. And I thought about it. So the head of mobile ended up being the CEO after I left. He ended up being the CEO in the company. The head of business ended up being the CEO of the air and seaports, and is now the CEO of one of the largest banks in the Caribbean. The HR manager ended up being the CEO of his own non-profit business, and now he's an advisor to the Prime Minister of St. Kitts. My technology manager ended up being the CEO in Cable and Wireless St. Lucia. And my comms manager ended up being the CEO of her own business. And if that wasn't a defining moment about leadership, not just you being your best, but you making sure those people behind you are the best that they can be as well, that was the defining moment.
Amazing. Wow. Yeah. Carrie, sorry, no pressure. Top that.
I really don't have a good answer to this. You know, I was reflecting on it. It was a good question. You know, I've never really thought about myself as a leader in many ways. So sometimes it's a hard one to answer. But if I kind of really reflect on it and look back over periods, maybe some of the signs have been there. You know, I was often the captain of the netball team, which I know is big in the Caribbean. Captain of the team, or you led a display group, or whatever. So many things. So I think maybe over the years there's been more moments to recall unless I reflect deeply. But I do, you know, I think leadership shows up differently, different ways. Mm-hmm. So there's so many different examples, probably many. You know, during the times of crisis, you have to lead from the front. I think that's important. Through most of our careers, hopefully we're leading from the side or from behind and pushing exactly. You know, as you said, so I think it shows up quite differently. I remember a moment though, and actually it was quite recent, which may or may not surprise you. You know, and it was actually in my current role. We were driving. You know, we had the murder of George Floyd in the U.S. We decided as a company to really get behind that. We talked to a lot of our employees. We tried to get some. You'll remember this. We got a lot of insights into what's going on in our business. How do people feel included in the way that we work, and what should we be doing? And I think for me, I realized a few things coming out of that. One is I actually felt strongly about it and felt that I could do something to drive an agenda forward. I actually wanted to do it, and I had that kind of passion to do it. And second, I think it was maybe the first time I realized I was in a position to do it. And I think you'd always say that leadership isn't about a position, it's more about what you do every day and how you do it. But there was something that clicked for me about being in a position to know that I could do it. And I think importantly, and something I hadn't given a lot of thought to in the past, is I felt that people wanted me to do it. And that really gave me motivation to kind of lean in and to kind of drive it. So for me, that was a moment when I saw, actually, I can do some good here. And I think for me, that's what leadership is about.
Not only influence that you could have, but your actual position.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Heather, over to you.
Yeah, so for me, it kind of, leaning into what Carrie and Pat have also shared. So one of the most telling moments for me as of late was to see that growth and development in the individuals that have worked under me. And it wasn't just that they were not only promoting and moving along in their careers, but to see them coaching one another and supporting one another and empowering them. And that's when you sit back for a minute and reflect and you say, I not only help to cultivate that talent to help them to grow, which takes a lot of work. Each person needs something a little bit different, right? You can't have a cookie cutter mold. You've got to get creative. You've got to think about their individual needs and how they want to pursue things and what's important to them. But when you see that change in them, it's incredibly rewarding. And so I've had that luxury lately, and I call it a luxury because it doesn't come easy, and there's a lot of hard work involved in that. But for me, that's really when you see that impact. But the best part of that is seeing them develop in that way is now they're going to do the same for those that are coming up under them and working with them as a team. So, and for me, that's when I say, hey, now you're getting that impact, but you're getting that continued change and influence.
Yeah. I'm going to follow up with you, Heather, on that one, because I think you talked a lot about the team. Pat talks about the team. Carrie always talks about her team. We talk a lot internally about diverse and inclusive teams and how that brings more innovation, how that brings benefit to the business. Anything that you've done in your career to kind of promote that, or any kind of policies that you're working on, or any thoughts around the importance of having a diverse and inclusive team?
Yeah, so I find it incredibly important. So having lived abroad, at least twice throughout my time as well, it's really important. And when you think and reflect on different cultures, different ways that people approach even decision making, having that diversity of thought is so important. And what I find is when you don't see that, you're missing out on things. You're not seeing things through that different lens. You're not seeing those different opinions, or even just a different and more strategic way to break something down and solve for it, right? And so for me, in trying to even think about how I build my teams or influence other leaders, is to say, when we're looking at something, we need to be looking at it very clearly. We want the best person for that role, someone that's going to add something that someone else on the team doesn't have. And it doesn't matter where they come from, who they are, if they're female, male, it doesn't matter. It's about that best person, and you want to have that diversity in thought. And what I will say, from various teams that I've been on, and I've been on both. I've literally been on an all-women team, which is, I find, it was one of my favorite things, if I'm being very honest. But at the same time, when you have that, you're also missing that diversity, right? And so one of the most rewarding teams I've been on was when I was at the innovation team at American Tower, and we literally had someone from varying countries, from varying just backgrounds at a general, when you think about engineers versus lawyers versus accountants, you really want a blend of background and cultures when you're thinking about diversity. And it became really powerful because people challenged me, but I also learned from each of them. And that's really what I think is most important when you think about that, is when you bring those diverse backgrounds and thought leadership together, you're going to be able to learn from each other, and you grow as a result, and you become better at what you do and how you reflect on things.
Yeah. And maybe just a kudos to CANTO and the organizing team. When Heather and I were just talking in the back, she said she'd been to a lot of industry conferences and things and had never been to a conference where she actually saw so many women participate in the things. So it's amazing that we are bringing some diversity into the group. And so kudos to CANTO and all the organizing teams. Pat, to you, building diverse teams, bringing diverse talent.
So it's something I do naturally, right? But it's something that is a challenge for others to even be open to. Yeah. So traditional businesses and hierarchies, there's something about tenure. The longer I'm here, I should be a manager, a senior manager, an executive. Traditional industries, well, that's male-led, not female-led, so I break those barriers. Traditional businesses and hierarchies, there's something about tenure. The longer I'm here, I should be a manager, a senior manager, an executive. Traditional industries, well, that's male-led, not female-led, so I break those barriers. So what do? I bring in the best person for the job, whether it's a male or a female, whether it's someone with long tenure or not. And so one of my brightest people right now is about 19. He's my product manager. 5 generations, and he skipped over everybody else, but he's the right person for that job. Talk about diversity. Women, I had the first female technician in St. Kitts out there, and you know, you think of female technicians and somehow there's a perception of somebody being quite butch. She was a former beauty queen, and she plays for the national football team as well. Beautiful young lady, and bright as ever. And so having that diverse opinion, but being open to it, being open to listening to other points of views, that you're not always right, that you have to listen to others, that's the challenge. But just break down those walls and make it happen.
Carrie, you're our internal champion in LLA on all things.
You know, I think you've got to be deliberate.
Yes.
You know, the challenge, and I think, you know, diversity, inclusion, you know, I think it kind of goes through kind of cycles where it's a priority, then it's not a priority. You know, you see this kind of churn of EDI champions in markets, in companies that do the role for a little while, then they leave the role. So getting traction, you've got to be deliberate. It's actually hard work to drive that level of change. A lot of people talk about it as a mindset thing, and it absolutely is, but it's also a little bit of a cop-out because we know that what gets measured gets done. So if you want to make a difference, you have to decide what it is you want to do, put some action behind it, hold people accountable to it. You know, and that requires change. And you know, and both of you talked about getting the right person for the job. When I hear that, I sort of I do this a little bit because you're 100% right. It's about getting the right people for the job. But when leaders say that to me, it normally means that they're going to hire someone like them that's probably a man from their network that they've worked with for 20 years, and that's what getting the right person for the job
exactly
means.
Not what I meant.
Exactly, but it's the truth. You want the right person for the job, but that normally means I'm going to hire my buddy who I've worked with. And honestly, it's the biggest barrier to driving change. We hire from our network.
I have to give you an example. Sorry, I love storytelling. So when I was in a job, and a job came up in Trinidad, a CFO job, and my name came forward. And the head office said, well, she can't do Trinidad. She's only ever worked in Cayman and St. Kitts, which are 2 small islands. Trinidad's huge, 1.5 million people. And they said, we think we need the right person for the job, who's normally top 5 accounting firm, Pricewaterhouse, Deloitte's male, to go out. And the person who was advocating for me actually was a man, wasn't a female, said, no, she can do it. And they said, okay, well, let's put her through the interviews. I went through 8 interviews, 8. The UK, Miami, St. Kitts, Trinidad, and multiple other ones. Passed the interviews. Then the HR person said, okay, you need to do some psychometric testing, Pat. I said, okay, I'll just get the HR person to sit with me and do it. They said, no, Pat, you're going to come to Miami because I want to see that it's you that's doing it.
Wow.
So I did a mathematical and English psychometric test. And she said, we'll get you the results in about, I don't know, in about a week or so. After 2 weeks, I didn't hear anything, and I called up and said, you know, what happened to the psychometric test? And her PA said, didn't you get the results? I said, no. She said, my gosh, my boss said they're the best results she's ever seen or ever got back from those tests, and she didn't tell me. But I got the job.
Congratulations on getting the job.
So in the end, it all worked out.
Yeah, but it just shows you the right person. That networking that I don't think women do enough. That networking of, you know, oh, I know that person could be great for that job, happens a lot in the tables and the arenas that we're not at. And so we need to make sure we have somebody there representing us when we're not there.
You want to build on that?
I think just coming back to the point on being deliberate, though, which I think is important, and you know, to give a little bit of data, over the last 5 years, we've increased female leadership in Liberty Latin America to 27%. Excellent. You know, when we started the company in 2018, there was 1 female in the group. We're now at 27%. So I think, but we've had to be deliberate on that. And you know, if I think about the Caribbean specifically, more than 40% of the country managers for cable and wireless are female. And again, requires deliberate action.
We have some of them here.
We have many of them here, I'm
here.
sure. And led by a great female too. So,
Yeah,
you know, I think it's important to be deliberate to get that level of sponsorship and drive some action. You know, I talked a little bit about the right person for the job, but you know, what that can translate to is open and fair recruitment processes, removing bias from recruitment, advertising each job, you know, forcing our headhunters and search partners to bring gender diverse shortlists so that there are many things that we can do to drive that action. And as I say, you got to measure it, even if it's not a specific target. You really have got to put some measurement behind it as well. So all of my team, you know, we talk about when we have vacancies, 50% of replenishment opportunities should go to diverse candidates, and all of my team have that target.
Yeah, no, fantastic. I know you were chomping at the bit to get in, so get in there, Heather.
Well, no, the one thing I wanted to mention, what you're most afraid of, right, is that people just hire a carbon copy of themselves for their friend. It happens. We've seen it, we've experienced it. And so one of the key things that does need to happen is not just that deliberate side, but it's also the training about what does it mean to build a team that's 50% diverse when you're filling vacancies. How do you go about that? And so one of the most telling things that I experienced was I went through, because American Tower is a global company, right? So they had our corporate office go through an entire diversity and inclusion training. And not only the training and the groups of people they put together were diverse, but I will tell you, it really broke down walls, it broke down barriers, and even team members of mine that I am friends with that are culturally much different than myself, I had no idea what they experience or how they feel on a daily basis. And so some of that deliberacy comes in providing that training so that people do go through that and start to actually think about how other people feel or the things that they've experienced. That was literally like, I walked away from 4 days of training and I was like, that changed my life, my approach, the way I look at hiring. But I learned so much just hearing from the rest of those that were in my specific group, because I did not know what some people experience. I know what I experienced, but they also didn't know that about me, right? And so I think as part of that deliberate planning is making sure that you're empowering those people and providing them with, what does it even mean? How do you even go about it? And sharing with them what it is that people experience, because everyone comes up differently and has different experiences. So it's really sharing that's really important.
No, fantastic. So we've talked a lot about pioneering change specifically within our organization and some of the experiences that we've had. What about just taking a step broader in terms of how do you drive change more broadly in your community, more broadly in society? So any examples you want to share? Maybe Carrie, I'll start with you and we'll just go down the road.
Yeah, I think the big one that stands out for me is the work that we did on gender-based violence. You know, in 2021, we lost, sadly, 2 employees to gender-based violence. And we used that as a moment to to learn and to understand kind of the extent of that within Latin America and the Caribbean, and then to drive some action around it, and to learn that 1 in 3 women in their lifetime will likely experience some form of gender-based violence was just shocking. In Puerto Rico, one of the regions that we are in had declared a state of emergency because of gender-based violence during the pandemic. So we use that to pull together a kind of policy, how we'll approach it, and to put that critical support to our employees and their families, you know, when they need it. And we've made that readily available. This isn't about what we do in Liberty Latin America. This is a societal issue. It's available. We talk about it. We send other companies to go learn. So no one has to start from the beginning. Take advantage of the learning that we've done, and we're very happy to share that, and we want to make that available. So that would be a big area. But I was sort of reflecting also that the policy is just the policy, you know, and it kind of, where does it, you know, stem from? There's so many other things that we can do. And I think one of the important things we learned through our work was that a lot of the root cause of gender-based violence comes from financial security. So I think focusing on things like pay equity, focusing on a way to get women into positions so they can be financially stable. And, you know, and I think there's even more to do when, you know, we have people in shelters and we can offer support. Finding a way for women to get back into work helps break that cycle. And so for me, I think this is an area where we can continue to lead. I think in our region, I think it's critically important. And I think the more companies can come together to address the issue rather than one company, I think it's where we have to come together as a community to really drive change in that area.
Oh, fantastic. Pat.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent input. I think being in a position all of us are in positions of influence, and to use that position to make a difference. And so for me, making internet available, accessible, affordable, however, whatever that means, whether it's subsidized internet, whether it's free Wi-Fi, whether it's special packages for the creatives, that kind of thing is an area on a wider scale. And also, how do we really showcase our great talent in the region? Really showcase it. So in a former job, there was somebody who had, when we used to, you remember prepaid cards, when you used to have to scratch the cards off to top up those of you, when you had to prepaid, and then it went online and you could top up online. It had just started, and there was a young entrepreneur that had this really good platform, and I used my position for him in St. Kitts to be able to have his platform available to the whole Caribbean to top up. So how do we facilitate, whatever it is, that great talent that's here throughout the wider Caribbean? So yes.
Fantastic. Great. Heather?
So for me, in reflecting on your question too, is that, I not only think about it in kind of how and what I can do on a daily basis with my career, but I also do a lot of community and crisis work outside of it. And so to your point, like no one left behind, bringing everyone up together. So one of the things that I do is I actually work with a nonprofit on their board, and it's about helping women out of crisis, and doing so by providing a very safe environment for them to work in, but providing them a living wage so they can get back on their feet, providing them career advice, helping them prepare for interviews. So I mean, it's really thinking of enabling them every step of the way. And so that to me is also impactful. So it's not just really the top-down kind of corporate ways that we might be able to make an influence, but it's also taking that community approach to also really push it forward as well.
Fantastic. Okay, we're going to do a little bit of a lightning round in our last 3 minutes, and I'll start with you, Heather, and work our way down. So we've talked about a lot of amazing things. As we think about the future, the three of you sitting up here set an amazing example for young people to be able to grow and develop in their career. But how do we enable kind of the next generation of female leaders, not only in the telecom business, but broader industries? So what are your thoughts on what can everyone in this room do to help bring more women into positions of leadership? Heather, and we'll come down.
Yeah, so for me, at any event I go to, I tend to try to find people that are new to the industry and bring them along with me, right? So I remember when I was first entering the telecom world, I walked into a conference in New York City, and I was the only woman in the room other than one more, and we are still very close friends. We've supported one another through our careers. So I really try to bring them along, and there's different organizations that are built to do that. So there's, a women's wireless leadership forum with a mentor program. I do that outside of those organizations. So it's really just taking that onus upon yourself to say, how can I individually make an impact in addition to leveraging those other organizations to help bring people up? And it's not always easy, right? But at the same time, for me, I remember I was at a conference in New Orleans, and this girl, Danielle, she was brand new to the industry. She did not know a soul. She walked into a 3,000 person conference not knowing a soul. And I was like, well, you know what? You met me, and the next few days, you're going to tag alongside. And she had a really rewarding conference. She ended up, doing really well for her company even a few weeks in. And it's doing things like that, but doing them because you're able to do good with the influence that you do have.
Great. Pat?
Everything she just said. And yes, supporting the network. So I'm a member of the British, the Business Professional Women's Network. I champion mammograms and breast cancer awareness. Lots of things outside of the corporate world. But really, just being able to mentor, to provide support, to network, to put them in touch with people that can help them. A lot of that. And there's the video at the end that I wanted to share at the end after you've spoken. But let me just quickly tell you why that video. So it was International Women's Day last year, and I was a speaker of the Ministry of Gender Affairs. And I wanted to showcase that being a leader doesn't mean you have to be a CEO. Everybody's a leader, like you said, in lots of different aspects of their lives. Everybody has influence. And there's lots of young women out there that really need some hope to look for. And how do you do that? And last year was the first time ever in the history of St. Kitts that all 4 leaders of telecommunications were women. So I called them up and said, come to my office and let's do a photo shoot. And we did a photo shoot with the 4 of us. And I felt that that was such a powerful message for everybody else. And it ends the video with that. So I just think that we should showcase each other, support each other. Because sometimes women are the worst people to other women. But showcase each other, reach back and pull them forward. Yes.
Awesome. All right, Carrie, the final word, and then we'll roll the video.
Yeah, I mean, I think everything that's been said. I think sponsorship's important, mentorship's important, allyship is important. I think all of these are important. I think as much as anything else, we've also got to increase more women in the pipeline to become leaders. I think there's a shortage in some ways. We have lots of incredible women throughout, even if I think about our organization, throughout our organization. So, if I put on my corporate hat, you sort of have to find a way to identify, develop, mentor, support, coach, sponsor, and then get the right opportunity or an opportunity for them to go. And I think we have lots of examples, where we have done that. But I'm also very focused on trying to build the pipeline a little deeper. You sort of got to flood the bottom of the pipeline through graduate programs and things like that. So, if you're hiring 20 graduates, maybe you're trying to find, 15 of them are female. You're trying to sort of go over the 50-50 kind of quota, if you like, because you're going to have some fallout over the years. Then I think you've got to have the policies and the things in place as people grow through the pipeline, even if you get into things like parental leave, where women can kind of leave the workforce, come back into the workforce, and not lose anything from doing that. So I think there's lots of things we have to do. It's clearly still a lot to be done and a long way to go, but I think there's lots of actions and things that we can do in the meantime. But important, I think, that women are creating, and men, by the way, because I think many of us here, I would say for sure, I'm where I am, not necessarily because of many people that I've worked with, but I think often people see things in you that you don't see for yourself, and you need that, whether that's a man or a woman. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah. Super. Well, big round of applause for the panel. It's been an honor to be part of this. Thank you so much. So if we can play the video real quick.
Kylie?
Yes?
What does success mean to you?
Well, success means basically when you've been practicing things for years and months and so on, and you finally get it done one day, and it encourages you to do more and harder things. Success is when you're not afraid to fail.
Success is your happiness. It's achieving your goal, like passing a test, graduating high school, or completing college. Success is feeling fulfilled, becoming a CEO, an entrepreneur, or even a dancer. Success means moving out of your comfort zone. Take risks and embrace your mistakes. Get up, try again, because your success depends on you.
Profoundly wise words out of the mouth of a child. Success is when you're not afraid to fail. From the beginning of time, women have made invaluable contributions to commerce, the family, the community, the village, entertainment, government, education, and the arts. With our God-given ability to multitask, reassure, support, enable, empower, and innovate. Our accomplishments have been against all odds, historically neither welcomed, appreciated, or duly recognized. But today, we can proudly say that times are changing. We are leading in the digital economy, and we are awesome examples of success.
Success is when you're not afraid to fail.
Happy International Women's Day 2023.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to our panelists. Wow, that roundtable was rich with content. We talked about mentorship, support, collaboration, leading with the influence that we have. Everybody actually wanted to be Michael for moderating that panel. Michael, a round of applause to you for ably leading the ladies through. Michael Coakley, VP Head of Communications, Liberty, Latin America. Carrie Scott, Senior Vice President, Chief People Officer, Liberty, Latin America. Patricia Walters, Chief Executive Officer, The Cable, and Heather Wilkins, Vice President and Chief Commercial Officer, HCI Energy. I think that was such a memorable roundtable. So many gems dropped by the ladies, but it is evident that CANTO, we need to be continuing this discussion, diversity, equity, and inclusion. It was great to hear Pat tell the story of being a dancer. She could have been a dancer, but she chose not to be a dancer, and she chose to lead in a different way. We can influence from where we are. And hopefully that roundtable will be available for us to share with others. Ladies, thank you very much. Women, leaders, pioneering change. I know by now you've all downloaded the CANTO app. Wonderful. And you've collected your shirts. Just a reminder that our shirts are to be worn tomorrow. They are sponsored by eNet, and we have all sizes available, small, large, medium, extra large, in between sizes. Remember, this medium and the largidium are also available. So looking forward to seeing everybody in their polos tomorrow. At this time, we welcome our roundtable discussion, Digital Sustainability and Cybersecurity. And that will be moderated by John Winter. Hi, John, SVP. Chief Legal Officer of Liberty, Latin America, and he will be joined by Delroy McLean, Regional Director, B2B Jamaica. Hi, Delroy. Gilbert Perez, Director, Caribbean Operations, Fortinet. Hi, Gilbert. And Ravi Rangunanan. Did I slaughter your name, Ravi? Please forgive me. Okay, thank you. Cybersecurity and Risk Lead of ProMan. Please give them a round of applause. And over to you, John.
Sit down. Thank you very much for that. I don't think I'm taking the cues enough from Carrie, because I realized halfway through her remarks that I have an all-male panel up here. So clearly I have to go back to some education from Carrie on that. But that was a great panel, and hopefully we can do it a slight justice here. You know, I'm excited to host this. I actually, it's a recent addition to my role. I now cover cybersecurity for Liberty Latin America, so I'm hoping to learn a lot from my panelists here. And we do have a diverse group here with both vendors, operators, and suppliers. So I think it's going to be rich. Basically, we're going to be talking about the importance of cybersecurity in today's digital landscape, and why cybersecurity is crucial, not just from a technical standpoint, but also from an operating standpoint. I think a number of years ago, it would have been very technical focused, but I think we all realize how significant cybersecurity is beyond hurricanes, which we know we've experienced with Beryl, and my heart goes out to all the people who are dealing with the aftermaths of Beryl, and I encourage everyone here to support in any way you can. But from a Liberty perspective, we've identified cybersecurity as one of our primary risks for the company, and so I'm looking forward to having this conversation for everybody to learn more about that. Briefly, I'll just ask the panelists here to give a brief background about yourself, and maybe mention a recent challenge you've faced in cybersecurity, or maybe a success story. So, Delroy, I'll start with you.
Hey, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Delroy McLean. I'm the Senior Director for Business at Cable & Wireless. About 30 years in IT. Just over 30 years. Cybersecurity is one of my passions. IT is definitely my passion, my hobby. I'd say my most recent challenge would have been last year, John. My mom is an iPhone user like so many, but she's not tech savvy. And last year she had an issue with her phone, and she doesn't want to reach out to me to nag me for everything, right? She's like, WhatsApp and take screenshots, what's this, what's that? So she got very independent, and which is good, which is very, very good, right? Mm-hmm. And she did a Google search, hey, what's the Apple support number? And the first thing that popped up, she didn't see ad in the corner, but the first thing that popped up was a number, and she called the number, and she got a contact center that happened to be a scam, right? So it's a properly structured contact center out of India. And they're like, oh, we can help you right away. The problem sounds like you've been hacked, but we need access to your phone, install this app, and then once you get your phone, just get access to your laptop. Oh, we're on your laptop. It seems that someone got access to your bank account. This happened in like 15 minutes. But I was in a meeting. My sister and my mom were in a different family chat group just for them. And so my mom panicked right away. She's like, this doesn't sound right. Couldn't get me, got my sister. But we had gone through this training before. Right? I'd been sending them YouTube videos of these contact centers and coaching them through. So my sister is just like, and she's in New York, but she's typical Jamaican. She jumps on the phone and she's just like, I don't know who you are, but hang up the phone. Come off of my phone. So she got them off the phone, got my mom to change all her passwords and everything. Then she got through to me. The downside was it took years for my mom to get comfortable with technology, and that just spiraled her backwards. Mm-hmm. So she lost her trust right away, and we were working on building it back. But she remembered everything. Yeah. She remembered everything eventually, and now she goes through practices. Now she's proactively seeking out information on cybersecurity. So that would have been,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I think a lot of people have experience with that, and even younger people, so that's important. Yeah. Gilbert?
So, hi, my name is Gilbert Perez. I am the sales director for Fortinet in the Caribbean. So I've been with Fortinet for 11 years. And been in the market of the Caribbean market for over 20 years. So I've definitely got a lot of experience in understanding some of the needs of the Caribbean marketplace. As far as stories go, my mom is 94 years old, and I'm sure I have plenty of stories that I can share with you, but probably not going to go ahead and copy Delroy here. I think, as a leader in sales, one of the biggest challenges that I face and that my team faces, right? So I lead a team of around 30 people that are focused on supporting our customers and partners in the Caribbean region. And one of the biggest challenges that we face on a daily basis is just trying to keep up with all the technologies and all the threats that rise. It's constantly changing. So what maybe what maybe we were familiar with and that we were having success with 2 years ago may no longer be relevant because a lot has changed. Some of the trends in the market, some of the customers, what customers are looking at may not necessarily be what they were looking at 2 years ago. So it kind of forces us to continue to educate ourselves around the new technologies that that we could then speak to customers about that can help facilitate some of the challenges that they're facing. So that's probably one of the biggest challenges that I face and I continue to face. And I think at the end of the day, it's something that we are all experiencing ourselves, right? It's not something that just stops with me because I'm a salesperson, but it obviously is affecting our lives, and we need to keep up with all the changes that are taking place. So that's what I could speak about my experience. Ravi?
All right. Hi, guys. I'm Ravi Ragunanan. I have been in IT for a little over 2 decades, and I was telling one of my colleagues from CW yesterday, I have actually been in cybersecurity before it was known as cybersecurity. Before it was a field, before it was something new, I've always been in cyber. I first did CH certified ethical in 2005. So that's a very long time I've been in cyber. So I've been around for a bit. What has been first interesting story for me is kind of similar to Delroy, which is a fairly recent occurrence for me. So where I work at Proman. We do continuous training, cybersecurity training across the entire group. And we had an instance within the past, let's say 2 years, that I was very happy that one of my engineers were able to actually read a phishing email. But it was a targeted phishing email. It was from another company that we work with. Our account had got compromised and was sending out emails. And he was able to recognize by the tone, the cadence of the email, the different red flags, so we have red flags for phishing. And he was able to identify that something was off with this mail. Contacted the vendor who got compromised, and got a confirmation from them that they were in fact compromised at that point in time. And he was able to do all that and then called me after and said, this is what was done, this is what he did. And I was incredibly proud of that. So they actually took the training and internalized it and able to actually function now with it. So to me, it's a very soft skills in the cybersecurity side, because that didn't cater for any technological controls. It was all user. The user was able to identify it and compensate and do everything that he was supposed to do. So to me, that's a big part of the cybersecurity landscape that is now. It's not all technical controls, it's not all firewalls, AVs. Everything has a part of it, but your users and your consumption, your users have to know what to do.
That's fantastic. Actually, I'm going to switch around the format here. Ravi, I want to follow up on what you were just talking about, because I think it's very difficult within organizations to balance kind of that technical knowledge and also the costs associated with having a secure cyber framework with the cost, balancing the cost against what to do, and also building that conscience that you just, the socially conscious awareness that you talked about. What have you found? What are some of the tools or some of the things that you've seen that produce that result that you just talked about? Because that doesn't happen just overnight.
No, you're right. It doesn't. It really doesn't. From my end, from Proman's end, the cybersecurity culture for us was actually very luckily was driven on from our CEO down. So it was a down push from the CEO level to embrace cybersecurity. And one of my mandates was, what is, as you rightly said, what is the best way to get somebody to do, someone to understand? So based off when we did risk analysis of the situation, what has to be done, the number one concern that we had was the couple thousand users that we have. Users increase the surface area of the attack. So we did a very massive, at that point, training exercise, which was just basic cybersecurity training, identification of phishing mails, identification of other types of attempts. So we did USB drops. So that's when you actually go around the compound and drop USB drives, test. We did training on all that. And it was the first part of the cybersecurity, it's a security education and awareness and training program. So a SEED program is the first step of our SEED program to execute it. But it really was the fact that it was driven from the top down on our end to embrace the cybersecurity culture across the entire group.
Yeah, but what about you? What have you seen within organizations that you've worked with that have been effective in that way?
So, we, from a manufacturer perspective, we do speak a lot with organizations that are, confronting cybersecurity challenges that, similar to maybe some of the challenges that we're seeing in the market. And one of the things that we realize and that we've preached all along is around you know, we had this term which we use a lot when I first started with the company, which is complexity is the enemy of security.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want really secure your network, the first thing you have to look at is what is it that you have in place today? How is it that you're managing your security policies? Because what used to be the case is companies had a lot of different point products that each one served a different purpose, right? But you know, the problem with that architecture is that it created a lot of complexity in the back end, because for them to create a security policy that addresses a particular, you know, challenge to the organization, they would have to either have experts in each one of these components that they have in their network, or they had to have one person that did it all, which usually, you know, the person was a generalist and didn't do it as well as maybe somebody that has the knowledge, maybe more dedicated knowledge. So, you know, what's helped Fortinet grow at the rate that we've been growing across the region is essentially in how we were able to talk to customers about, you know, eliminating where it makes sense some of the complexity within their architecture. That's something that we continue to do today, because if you look at a lot of organizations, many of them are, you know, they've established a SOC, right? That's supposed to look at incidents as they're taking place, and it's supposed to, you know, come up with a plan of action should one thing happen that can eventually tarnish the image of the company. So with SOCs, the problem is the human limitation, right? So, you know, when incidents occur, they're being bombarded with different kind of alerts on an hourly, you know, basis, right? Which makes it very difficult for one person to stand in front of a machine to look at each one of these alerts. So what you know, happens a lot is that these alerts go unnoticed, right? Because it's just impossible to be able to do that. And so what we're doing as a vendor is we're introducing things like AI and machine learning to really go after, you know, how to improve some of the ways that, you know, SOCs are dealing with a lot of these alerts that are coming at them at, you know, millions of speeds per second. So, you know, that's kind of, you know, some of the things that we're seeing happening in the industry, some of the things that we're doing to help solve customer problems.
That's great. Delroy, within an operator like LLA and Cable Wireless, what have you seen as effective, since you're so passionate about it?
Well, I think the number one thing is that I've got this annoying guy named John Winter who sends me an email every 3 months to do my training, right? My cybersecurity training. But on top of that, at Cable Wireless, we're a SOX compliant company, right? We are complex, we're wide, we're broad, and understanding where all the processes sit, who's doing what, how it all flows through is important, because cybersecurity is more than just the technology. It's the behaviors, it's the people. We worked with Gabriel recently, actually last year, on a customer that went through lots of changes. So they were initially a small financial firm who became a large firm, and they didn't understand how they operated, didn't understand the people, who did what, they didn't know that. And so we sat with them. Actually, after they had a breach, it was a major breach, ransomware breach. Someone clicked on a link that Bobby John sent them that they shouldn't have. But they clicked on a link, that was bad. They didn't know who clicked on the link. They didn't know who was supposed to respond. They didn't know who to call. And because it was a ransomware, it was a financial house, they didn't want to call anyone. They didn't want to call the police. They didn't want to hit the media. Through relationships, they called us, and they limited the response team to 3 or 4 of us, right? Only 3 or 4 of us could have a call with the customer. And so we had to sit with them throughout the day and night. What's your org structure? Where's your compliance? Where are you certified? Where are your documents stored? And it goes to show that your partners can help for sure. You know, we know what we're doing. But you need to know what you're doing as well. And so regulatory comes into this. It is the different GDPRs, the DPA in Jamaica and Bahamas as well, right? That helps you to understand the structure of how you're set up. And that's intended for a disaster. And a cybersecurity breach is a disaster, right? If you go with the mindset that there is going to be a breach, how do you respond? That's what's going to save you. At Cable Wireless, we are constantly under attack, as you know. Ransomware is a constant threat, but we have denial of service attacks, you know, coming from other networks, removing access from people to the internet. That's a constant thing for us. And when we learn through that, we allow that knowledge to propagate throughout our organization and enable our customers as well. So that's what we've learned.
That's very good. I think one of the things that I've learned early in this experience is, one, the incident response plan. You're never going to stop it. You always think, oh, can I just put up walls around this? But you can't. The most important thing is that incident response plan and just being ready and being responsive.
Absolutely.
And so, I encourage everyone and to do tabletop exercises to learn about it. I'm going to switch things up here a little bit. I want to talk about some emerging trends and technology. So Gilbert, one of the things is that, we had a situation in our company where we had a DDoS attack on on-prem firewalls. It wasn't one of yours. Don't worry about it. Immediately during that, everybody was like, oh, we got to move stuff to the cloud. We got to move stuff to the cloud. And then I started asking questions, well, is cloud native safe, right? Because everyone always says it's safe. Can you give some of your perspective and maybe challenges about moving to the cloud and some things that the room could think about when they're moving stuff to the cloud from a security perspective?
Yeah, actually, we do have a lot of experience working with a lot of the cloud providers. So we are a partner of, for example, Microsoft Azure, Amazon Web Services, Google, et cetera, right? So for customers that are looking at moving to a cloud environment, we definitely already have solutions in place to help with that. Now, the first thing I think I need to mention around cloud native applications is really the benefit around why companies are looking at moving that way is really because of the flexibility that cloud providers can provide. Use the redundancy there, but essentially, what you see happening in the industry right now, you have companies like Netflix, Amazon. These companies are actually releasing new software or new versions of their software on a daily basis, which means that there's a lot of development taking place that that they're doing to their interface. That is providing them with a differentiator, with a value add to customers. So it's important that they're first to market with whatever features they want to bring to their customers. So with cloud native applications, the ability is for companies to be able to now just rather than buy and build using their own funding, they could actually go onto a cloud provider and instead provision the amount of resources that they need to support this application. So it's a whole different way to continue to release new features to market and provide customers with more value. For example, banks, they do it, but at a lot slower rate than maybe some of the companies that I mentioned. But nonetheless, they are doing it. However, because of a trust factor, that maybe they rather build it themselves as opposed to having to put it out in the cloud. But nevertheless, what we recommend customers that are interested in moving to cloud native applications is, you really need to get security involved from the get-go, right? So when your engineers are looking at coding the application and actually going in and doing the programming, this is where it's important that they engage security from that point on, right? We have a product that actually utilizes AI and is actually able to look at common flaws within the actual code that they're writing. So if it's making reference to an outdated library, for example, our product, it's called the 40 DevSec, is actually looking at coding as it's being written, and is actually making recommendations on the fly with regards to potential problems in the actual code itself, right? So that then companies could actually, as they're about to release new features, they can understand what the potential impact of this new feature could be on their service before they actually release it as a general availability version of their product. So the flexibility is true benefit to cloud native applications, and we actually include the security aspect that is going to be required to make sure that the companies are releasing these features and they're doing it the right way so that they don't open themselves to a potential attack down the road. So there's solutions in place that we provide through partners like CNW that may be useful for companies that are looking at that right now. Done.
Thanks. And thanks for bringing up AI. You can't do a panel these days without it. So.
Yes, absolutely.
But that leads me to my next question for Ravi. How will or what will generative AI do to shape the future of cybersecurity, both from a threat actor perspective, but also as companies look to defend themselves or be more resilient using generative AI?
So, just want to start off by saying I have already made up my mind that I am going to bow to AI overlords when they take over. Right? Because that is just the way it's going to shape up. Gen AI, narrow AI, future AI, whatever it's going to be, is going to be a very prevalent use as we go forward. So that in mind is also very scary from a cybersecurity point of view. AI, as it stands right now, has the ability to learn and craft incredibly good phishing attempts and do phishing campaigns. They could actually learn cadence, tone, vocal, the way that you write right now to easily mimic anyone in the room. They learn from a couple of emails and they can mimic a very good phishing attempt. Then also AI is now able to do and actually design and help create very advanced types of malware that other AI systems will have to be used to detect. AI right now is so powerful, and the way it could work, it could be used for any number of things. The next big part from a side, I wouldn't even say it's a cybersecurity concern, but an overall concern for everybody in the room, everybody in the world, is the new, I won't say new, but the enhanced work of deepfakes. Deepfakes with AI backend now is able to simulate a conversation. We have had an instance earlier this year where can't remember which company, but somewhere in China, that they were contacted via deepfake video chat, and the person they contacted did his due diligence, what he thought, and escalated, and they went on a large Zoom call with multiple people in the organization to authorize the transfer, and it was all fake. It was all deepfake AI that are able to mimic people, mimic the tone, mimic the cadence, mimic the voice, even mannerisms. So, as I said, AI right now is such a powerful tool, but from a cybersecurity perspective, from a risk perspective, it's very scary, because what you would have normally done for your best practice, as I would have mentioned earlier in my story earlier, there's always something called the red flags of phishing. What everybody knows to look out for in phishing mails. Sense of urgency, spelling errors, etc. AI, that doesn't exist again. AI-generated phishing attempt doesn't exist. And the malware actors that are out there to compromise our systems, to compromise every stakeholder, from big to small, have access to these tools, and sometimes better tools as they own. So it's a very, very scary part going forward. But from a protection side, as Gilbert would have indicated, the protectionary tools are getting better also. They are, as Gilbert was saying, there are tools now that would analyze the SOC alerts, for that example, and these tools can get the mean time to detect an intrusion on your network was, I think it was 67 days, thereabouts. So 67 days for a competent cybersecurity team to detect an intrusion on your network. That is the baseline. So everybody in here could actually have somebody on their network for 67 days without knowing. But these tools are now able to detect it in 1 day, 1-2 days. So just that detection and response from my AI tool is one of the major things that we have. So as I said, the tools are getting better, but the threat actors are also getting better.
Yeah, no, that's, we could probably do a whole panel about the regulation and ethical implications of AI, but so I'm not going to dig deep into that topic anymore. Delroy, a question for you in terms on the mobile side, because you know the example you gave earlier, but also is becoming kind of another front on the in the cyber attacks, mainly with smishing and other types of things that we all see. What are some of the things that you're seeing or doing or advising B2B clients on kind of how to kind of protect that part of the network?
Good question. One of the things that we're seeing is the shift from standard SMS to over-the-top SMS services like Google SMS, etc. And what we're finding is there are a lot more attacks on these OTTs, right? A lot more smishing attacks or attempts. And so it's how do we educate our customers on basic SMS versus non-basic. That's one. Two, not only for our B2B customers, but our customers overall on mobile, the connectivity gap. So we'd have heard throughout the day on connecting the unconnected, and we want to connect the unconnected, right? We want to connect, we want to educate them as well, but we have to have cybersecurity as a baseline as well in that program. So when we think about Jump, for example, you get someone a new mobile device. How do you educate them as to what are the threats, what are the possibilities, what can you do to protect yourself? Because they change every day, I kid you not. You're getting things such as linking your Amazon account to say, hey, you just placed an order. There's an issue with the order, the shipping. Click this link to resolve it, right? Because your Amazon account is linked to a Gmail address that's now been spoofed, already been compromised, and now they can know there's a relationship. They don't care the details don't matter. They're going to assume, because this is also AI generated, that you placed an order recently, and it's something that's being shipped now. So click this link to resolve it, and many people click right away, right? And so it's how do you ensure that you give our customers, the confidence that what's coming through is clean, and that's through education. That's number one. Two, it is another challenge we're having on the SMS side, and just mobile devices in general, is spoofing of the actual numbers. Who's calling who, where is this coming from? The voice replications, the voice imitations. How do you know it's legit or not? Again, knowing who your people are. We're actually telling our customers, hey, if you have people in other countries or in other businesses, sometimes pick up the phone and call them, right? You get a call back.
Yeah.
It's the basics. It goes back to the basics of people. But the biggest thing we're seeing across, especially our MNCs, is the lack of trust. A lot of our customers have removed trust or reduced trust in mobile and just technology overall. Trust has created, or that lack of trust has created a gap in digital transformation, right? The risk assessment becomes higher. What do you do? How do you go back to basics? And what we have to instead have is, how do you instead use technology, as we spoke about earlier, to bridge that gap, to make trust come back into the equation, to rebuild that trust. But it's complex, John. It is fast moving. For one of the most recent hacks we had, came out of Europe. It was an SMS that came through out of Europe, bounced to Africa for a contact center. So the number was a European number. The person answering was in Africa, all speaking French. The local partner, the local customer knew that their partner was out of Europe, and everything seemed legit. And the only thing that stopped it was they had in place a policy that says once they get an order like this, pick up the phone and call. Right? We don't have that in our process, and it goes back to knowing your processes, etc. If it was an individual, they might have gotten caught, and that's the sad news.
Yeah. Important to have the process and to follow that process.
Have the process. Have the process.
So that's really good. Well, we've got a couple minutes left, so I'll just, and Ravi, I'll start with you, and then we'll come back this way in terms of just any concluding remarks you may have? In particular, what do you foresee as kind of the biggest challenges in this space for operators over the next 3 to 5 years?
So the number one problem that we have in the space, well, in any space right now for us, is really ransomware at this point. Ransomware continues to be the most prevalent issue that we have. What I would say also for operators in this space, in energy, in mass manufacturing, governments also, advanced persistent threats. APTs that are executed by foreign governments are also very, very complex, very hard to detect. So, especially in this space, for this group, these are real life threats that are out there, because these are actors that very much target critical infrastructure, so telecom, oil and gas, energy, utilities. So this is the space that most people in this group work in right now. So I would say that, and as maybe the top 2 threats right now. Of course, the vectors will always be there, different vectors, different changes, but right now the top 2 threats would be that. And what I would also like everybody here to acknowledge, just pivoting on something Gilbert said, I actually encourage everyone from as early as possible, include your cybersecurity group, include your cybersecurity working groups, even if you don't think it may be necessary, because it is. Everything has a technological impact right now, or is based off technology. But not everyone, most things, based off technology. And once it has technology, there's always going to be a cybersecurity component of it. Get your teams involved from early. Really spend some time in risk evaluation. I'm a very, very strong proponent of risk evaluation, of quantifying and qualifying your risk. So I would encourage everyone in here to make sure that you are able to quantify and qualify risk, especially any project as you have going forward.
Yeah, very good. Good, very good. Gilbert?
Yeah, so I think Robbie kind of put into perspective some of the challenges that we are seeing. The one thing I'll add is, that as we go forward into the future, some of the things that will be more prevalent as we go along is that, we're not, as companies, we're not going to be competing against the traditional cyber attackers, right? Because it used to be that there was a person behind the threats, right? Nowadays, we're moving into a future where it's not going to be a person. It's going to be a person who actually, created an AI platform that is going to be using a lot of different ways to actually come at your organization. A lot of times it could be using social engineering. So understanding a little bit about who you are as a company, maybe the people that answer the phones, and finding ways to get through and achieve their goals, right? So, what companies like ours are doing within what we offer to customers is we're using the same elements, right? So AI is critical, and you've heard me say AI a number of times during my discussion, because this is what it's going to take. What we are doing in terms of the types of solutions that we're bringing to market is we are utilizing AI that's been built from the ground up at Fortinet, right? So the danger with OpenAI and some of the other popular AI systems out there is that whatever you do, whenever you interact with them, it learns more about you than maybe you want them to, right? Because there is that risk that if you give too much information, then the AI actually could down the road use it against you, or maybe somebody that's well versed in AI could use that information against you. So there's a difference between OpenAI and what companies like ours are building, in which we are using our own AI solutions to be able to help customers address some of their challenges. So things like what John mentioned in terms of building playbooks, right? So that if an event takes place, if an incident takes place with the organization, how do you want the technology to deal with that? So you create a playbook that says, okay, if this happens, then I want you to do this, so that we, at the end of the day, can automate how you want the network to respond within a given, a particular incident, right? So that you take out some of the human elements from that equation, so that when something does occur, it isn't left up to a human to actually, take manual action. You could actually create it so that you could create a playbook that then actually takes immediate action to counteract or counter that potential threat that could be coming in. So, again, AI is the future. Some of the things that Rabi indicated that are concerning is how hackers are using it, especially coming after critical infrastructure. What we're seeing happening in Ukraine, in which some of the hackers there from the Russian side were actually able to take down critical infrastructure in Ukraine using technology, right? So that's something that obviously is concerning to us, and that we feel is going to continue to happen more often. And companies like ours are really building a mechanism to help companies like yourselves or organizations like yourself defend against that. So hopefully that kind of sheds some light on what what we're seeing.
Delroy?
Fully agree with Ravi and Gilberto, and that's why we partner, right? But I'm still on the education piece, so I'll ask everyone a question, quick poll if I can. How many persons here are using fingerprint ID or face ID on their phones or logins? Anyone? Quick show of hands. Yeah? How many persons are aware of any cybersecurity risk related to using it? It's AI, by the way. Anybody scared? Everybody using it? Everybody's okay? Everybody aware? Quick show of hands. Well, that negates the final question. Anybody have any expertise or access to expertise to help you? Yeah, it's always going to be education. It's a changing world, right? Digital is the future. We've heard about it all day today. We spoke about education. We spoke about connection. We spoke about yesterday as well. It is a changing world, and it's moving very fast. And I like to think of cybersecurity like I think about life insurance. So my mom was a life insurance agent, so I got to become a mini expert on life insurance. And the only expertise I know is that someone mandated that everyone has to have it, right? That's my knowledge on life insurance. And it became ubiquitous. If you could afford it, you could have it, but you had many different tiers, many different types, similar to health insurance or universal care. And that's where cybersecurity needs to move to. The protection, the defense, the awareness, most importantly, is where we need to get everyone on. The very littlest thing to the very greatest thing is what we need to have. If you don't have it, don't worry. Get the expertise, get the help, right? When you think about who we're bringing onto the network as a telco, our customers, and where they are in their digital cycle, be it an individual or a business, a small business, a large business, they're all at different stages, but they all have threats. And so we need to understand our customers where they are, meet them where they are, support them where they are, right, and give them the tools, educate them. And where it is that that level or that gap is too wide, we have to fill that gap. We have to fill that divide. Give them the tools to protect themselves on the network. That's what we really got to do. From a how do we get it done, that's why we're all here today. So if we're going to have the conversations, now is the time. Here is a place. Let's figure out, honestly, where do we think we are? So many people didn't raise their hands. Rachel, you should have raised your hand. But very honestly, say, hey, where am I? And where's the person next to me? And how do we solve it? I think that's where we need to get to. That's the biggest challenge.
That's great, and there's a great lead into I know there's different cyber kind of practices going on at the booths over the next couple of days, so I encourage everybody to really reach out and try to partner and learn more about this. But thank you to the panelists. They did a great job. If everyone give them a round of applause.
For digital sustainability and cybersecurity, our moderator, John Winter, SVP, Chief Legal Officer, LLA, Delroy McLean, Regional Director, B2B Jamaica. Delroy, we need to talk about that Face ID thing. I thought I had it right. Gilbert Perez, Director Caribbean Operations, Fortinet, and Ravi R., Cybersecurity and Risk Lead of ProMan. Thank you very much, gentlemen. You know, as we talked about our cybersecurity stories and training, a board that I sit on, we recently had some cybersecurity training, and they seem to send these cybersecurity trainings all the time. Like, you're always doing it. So I thought to myself, you know, I think I know this. I'm going to skip this one. So I kept getting the reminders. And then I got an email, and in its caption it said, "To the fabulous woman," and I opened it, and it was the cybersecurity officer sending me an email to say, "Go and do your cybersecurity exam," because I would have failed. I just saw fabulous, and I said, that must be me. So at this time, as I mentioned fabulous, during the lunch break, inviting you to go to the SaskTel booth, number 15, to snap a pic and win. You can take a fun selfie, upload it to the SaskTel giveaway discussion on the CANTO app between up to 4 p.m. today, and the winner will be announced at the end of the day. And please take a fabulous selfie. Yeah, and upload. And we also found a pair of sunglasses. They're at the registration booth. If you don't come for them, they're fabulous. I'm going to take them myself. This time, I'd like to welcome, for our final discussion ahead of the lunch break, Mr. Jose Abreu, Vice President, Digital Marketing and Streaming from Sony Music. Jose. A round of applause for Jose. As I'm trying to launch my music career, I'm looking forward to this discussion with you. And Jose and I will be discussing today operator-led streaming and promoting local. You can sit near to me. I won't.
I'll sit closer.
Yes, thank you. So we're not too far away. So Jose, can we just start by giving a brief overview of your role at Sony Music and your involvement in digital marketing and streaming?
Yeah, no, of course. You guys hear me okay, or?
We're hearing Jose okay?
Hello, hello?
Perfect.
Better? Okay, good. Well, first off, thank you for having me here. I'm super honored to be here, excited. So yeah, I work for Sony Music based out of Miami. My role is digital marketing and streaming, and it covers a lot of different pieces. It also covers business development. It's supporting all of our different teams across the region because I oversee the US Latin, all of Latin America, Caribbean, Spain, and Portugal. And so when it comes to digital marketing on releases, but also the partnerships, as well as streaming in terms of video, in terms of Spotify, all our partners across the company and the region. So.
Awesome. So operator-led streaming, why is that becoming increasingly important? Because we have a lot of operators here. Why is that becoming increasingly important?
Yeah, I mean, I would say operator-led streaming is super, super important when it comes to culture, right? Especially when we're talking about the culture of all the different countries that are part of the Caribbean, for example, right? The truth is that, you know, there's a lot of global services out there. There's the Spotify, there's, you know, I can name them all, and they're there to support all the music that's available. And the truth is that we have a challenge that every day, and this is an average that continues to grow, there's about 150,000 songs being released every day, new music. And it gets to a point where it's very difficult to curate that, right? And I think that the roles of operator-led streaming services is not just about providing services for local, you know, consumers, right? And in a way that's meant more for them to consume more music, but it's also, I would say, as a curator of local music.
Oh, so not just providing the platforms for the music to be streamed, but actually curating that local content so that we can grow it.
Exactly, because I think that the truth is that because there's so much music and because it requires people dedicated to listen, to curate those experiences, I think that, you know, having services that are homegrown allow for people to have, you know, to be dedicated to like listening to the music, understanding, curating it well, because the truth is that the Caribbean itself has such a rich, diverse set of music and genres that it in itself, it has enough attention for you to sit there and create an experience that's unique.
Yes.
You know?
So it's quite amazing because we are coming from a long way with music. I remember mixtapes. You look a little young. I don't remember them either, but I've heard about mixtapes.
Yeah. the little tape on top.
And we would record music on the radio and listen back, play back. But now we are streaming music. People are able to create music even on their mobile device. So how does Sony Music plan to leverage the local operators in the Caribbean to promote regional artists and content?
Well, that's the thing. It becomes a platform. It's a marketing platform for you to support those artists, right? You create these experiences that are not just on the platform but off, right? Because I think that sometimes we forget that for you to really connect culturally something, it's not just online. You have to feel offline as well. You have to hear it, see it, people talking about it as well. And so in many cases in the past and current, with our partners, we always sit down and identify what kind of activations can we do, what kind of content can be created, because I think that the biggest areas of opportunity is building content around the music as well. It's 360, right? Like, how do you build the story around a particular artist? How do you build the story around the genre itself? How do you educate the rest of the world? Because again, I would consider that some of these services become the global curators of Caribbean music.
Yes.
You know?
And we are seeing music appearing in just different forms now, because some music we know because of a TikTok dance. Some music we know because of background music on a reel. So what we're seeing is technology is playing a greater importance in how music is actually curated, how it's getting to the people. But as you say, we do have to build that digital marketing. We have to make sure the artists are known so that we can really build that Caribbean local content. So in terms of the role that technology plays, when we're thinking of some of the innovative projects and collaborations that Sony Music is involved in now in the region, can you share a little bit with us some of those collaborations?
Yeah, there's some collaborations across some markets and some islands. We're working with partners that are focused on creating white label solutions that are specifically catered to, you know, operator-led services, right? And I think that the biggest challenge and also the biggest opportunity is working with these kind of partners, working with operators to build a product that is unique for the market, right? Because I think that, you know, when you go and look at, you know, the services across the Caribbean and even other parts of the world, the challenge is that if you think about all the services in general, there's not a lot of variation in the services, right? It's pretty much you go in, you consume, there's playlists, etc. But I think that there's ways to get creative on even the product itself. And so with some of our partners right now that are focused on this type of space, we're looking and sitting down to identify, okay, how do we create a unique product that is specific to the needs of the market, to the needs of operators? Because I think the truth and the challenge when it comes to services with operators is that, you know, it's also used as a loyalty program, right? It's used as a way to build that connection with their consumers, to keep them there on the service. And you know, because it's a business, it's also looked at as like, how do you make sure that it's a win-win in the sense that it's from a business standpoint, it's something that grows, that's sustainable. But at the same time, and I think it's even more important as well when we're thinking about these services, is that it also provides an opportunity for local artists to make money off of their music, right? To provide value to music, where a lot of times in a space where 150 songs are getting released, you get lost in the shuffle, right? Unless someone is sitting there, tastemakers, someone is actually putting that on a platform and on a pedestal and making sure everybody can see and hear the music that's there.
It's easy to get lost. And this, the challenge, because there are the challenges now with streaming services, and how are the streaming services and the growth of streaming services impacting the music industry in our region?
Yeah. The truth is that, you know, the growth of streaming is, I think that it's here, right? Like just everybody consumes music through some type of streaming service, right? Whether it's YouTube, whether it's Spotify, etc. it gets to a point where, the more and more these services are being paid for, right? Then the more that they're able to expand and do more things. I think that it is coming to a point where, again, going back to the point of we need to start to identify other types of products.
Yes.
What are other ways of people consume? And I think that specifically where some cases like operators get involved is you see the situations in other countries that I've seen where a lot of times, some of the operators are partnering with certain platforms, and then they'll make the data free for consumers, where to some extent, I would argue, makes certain services much more relevant. And there's some very massive services that, because of these types of incentives, have maintained a certain level of relevancy over the last couple of years. But it is finding those ways to kind of weave it into the product mix.
Yeah. So it's not just buying the data, it's that the data is coming with certain benefits, including things like the streaming of music.
Correct.
Because more is expected. Do we have any success stories or case studies of local artists in the Caribbean who have benefited from operator-led streaming that you can share?
Yeah, there's a lot of use cases. I think that we have like a very great service in the Dominican Republic. For many years, we had an amazing service in the Caribbean and Jamaica and Trinidad through Digicel as well. So there was a lot of amazing use cases. One that was supporting local artists and putting together these activations, right, that were supported for those particular access. Some of them aren't signed to us. But, there's also these other parts of our business that we've started to expand on because, one of the things with not just Sony, but just across the board, all the different kind of major labels that are out there and services is that, there's also services that are there to distribute music for not just independent labels, but also independent artists and those kind of what we call do-it-yourselves. And so through those types of platforms and services, we've been able to support a lot of the local artists in that means.
Okay. So if really I am a singer and I'm one of the 150 performers that are releasing songs every day, when we are thinking about streaming in the context now that you are able to upload a video yourself, create a video yourself, how do we really entice musicians, performers to go through a particular mechanism? Because a lot of them think, I can do it myself. What does Sony do in the background to ensure that we're actually getting that proper marketing, but also the structure around the business of music?
Yeah. No, it's a good question. The truth is that it's always a partnership, right? The artist is the one that makes the music. They have the creative vision. They're supposed to defend their music and who they want to represent to the public themselves. We're there to be the means and to give them the tools and the resources to expand on that. Our goal is to make sure that that music is getting put in front of fans who want to listen to that type of music. We're also sitting down and just kind of giving them tactics, tools, and supporting, saying, hey, approach it this way, release it this way. We also have our resources to make sure that when things are starting to expand in another market, that we have people on the ground to help support, push through our local partnerships, et cetera. I think right now, the biggest opportunity for any artist and any creator is to really lean into content and really building the content around their music. Because one of the things that you see, and this is something that I talk a lot internally when it comes to social media, which is kind of probably one of our key means of communication, is that social media is changing how they curate content. And it's really being led more by interest. In other words, a long time ago, or maybe not even a long time ago, maybe like 3-5 years ago, you would go on, let's say, on Facebook or on Instagram, and you would follow someone. And, then you would receive, content from them, right? Well, a post from them, etc. Now it's a bit different, right? An artist that has maybe 100,000 or 50 million followers, right? When they put something out, they used to have this guarantee that at least a portion of those people were going to get it. Now, content is served to people based on an interest. So like if you put something out that's about sports or et cetera, then it's shown to someone who doesn't even follow you. So it opens up this opportunity that it doesn't matter if you have 100 million or if you have 1,000 followers, you're able to, if you have really good content, you can actually put that out to the market, and people can actually connect with you. And that to me is one of the things I'm talking constantly with artists and labels to say, just lean into content. Lean into just creating something that is entertaining, that's unique, that people will connect with. And again, going back to operators, I think that there's a massive role there, and being able to curate not just music but content. You know.
So as we are wrapping up, when you're looking at the next 3 to 5 years, what are some of the key things that operators need to be mindful of with where music is going, where entertainment is going, and how people consume their content?
I think that where things are going over the next couple of years is more music. I think that there's more technology that's making it easier for artists to create music. I think it also creates a situation where more, let's say, casual creators can make music as well. Right? So now all of a sudden an artist is not just competing with other artists, but also folks who are just do it as a hobby for fun, that aren't even considering themselves as musicians. And so it's going to get a lot more competitive. I think that when it comes to the curation of music, it's more and more going to be leaning into algorithmic and those cues of is what's connecting with someone. And so that way, for me, when it comes to the next couple of years, authenticity in the music and what you're putting out is going to be so important, because it's the way to really connect as quickly as possible with people, because it's going to get a little bit complicated.
So as it gets complicated, our operators have to ensure that they are providing the platform, the data, but also being innovative in how the streaming, how the data is provided, the packages that are provided, because our consumers are expecting more. Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Jose Abrera, Vice President, Digital Marketing and Streaming, Sony Music.